We are holding recording in progress. The 9th page of the printout, if I'm correct in my calculations, on page Yud Gimel. And we were speaking about how there's the Tkiyas Shofar of Elul versus the Tkiyas Shofar of Rosh Hashanah. The Tkiyas Shofar of Elul brings about a Yira Tata, a lower level of Yira. The Tkiyas Shofar of Rosh Hashanah brings about a higher level of Yira. And it's very important to have the Bittul and Yira to be able to draw down the Makif, the transcendent level that we have to bring down at Rosh Hashanah. So for that, you need to have the blowing of the shofar. And we were explaining what is it about the blowing of the shofar of El. We have blowing of the shofar, and we have the Yira Ilah of Rosh Hashanah. Why do we need to have also the blowing of the shofar in El? So one of the things is we said that before you can come to the Yira Ilah of Rosh Hashanah, you have to have first the Yira Tata of Elul. But from that perspective, then the Yira Tata of Elul is really a lower level, as only something that needs to be introduced before you can get to that higher level of Yira. And also we explained that this is corresponds to the Elul and Rosh Hashanah times corresponds to what it says, that there is first Yira Tata, then there is Ava, minor Ava, greater Ava, and then there's Yira Ilah. So you have first when the Yidden are Makabel, Pnei Malchusi Yisbarach, when the Yidden greet the king, so they have the higher level, the lower level of Yira. Then there is a love engendered by Hashem's beautiful face, and then a greater love by Hashem's smiling and laughing face. And then we come to Yira Ilah of Rosh Hashanah. So essentially, it's all about that the Yira Ilah is something that's higher and but on the other hand, can only follow the Yira Tata of Elul. Now, the end of or the last Ois that we learned, he spoke about that really there's an advantage and a quality of the Yira Tata of Elul over the Yira Ilah of Rosh Hashanah, even though that's a greater Yira, that's Bittul v'Metzias, and it's the idea of that were completely nullified, whereas the Yira Tata of Elul, it's only like Kabbalas oil, a basic Bittul Hayesh. Still in all, where does the Yira Ilah from Rosh Hashanah come about as a result? It comes as a result primarily of the Gilui Malchusi Yisbarach. It's the time of the revelation of his awe, and since everybody is in awe of the king and the awesomeness, etc., so it's not really coming from me, even though it's a much more complete Yira, but it's not a novel thing. It's not something that I am creating a completely new thing that I wouldn't have had, or I'm not creating something out of whole cloth. But on the other hand, and he gave an example, it's like the bittul of Chachma, or the bittul of Atzilus, or the bittul of Keser. But not only that, you need to have the blowing of the shofar. But on Elul is something that they decide to greet the king, even though the king is in the field. And while he's in the field, he doesn't manifest all the great revelations that the king has. And therefore, his awesomeness is not perceived. And therefore, it doesn't automatically bring us to awe. Still in all, we choose to go greet him in the field. That bittul, even though it's a lower state of bittul, it's only bittul hayesh, is a very precious bittul by Hashem. It's considered a very great bittul by Hashem. And then the Rebbe said, we said that there's Hashem's tainuk, Hashem's delight. Makabel kulam b'sefer ponim yafes, umar ponim soiches lekulam. He shows everybody a laughing face. So he says that this laughing face of the king is added and greater because of the Yidden's own avodah, because they did it of their own self. And then he says another thing. There is the maila of the quality of the bittul, the quality of the bittul of Yirei Allah Rosh Hashanah is a higher quality bittul Metzias. Whereas the quality of the bittul of Elul is only bittul Ayesh. But then there's the idea, is it coming from me or coming from above? So in regards to the quality of the bittul is greater. But when we're talking about, is it coming from me? So this is more my thing. Now he's going to explain that really, even, or not now he's going to explain, we explained at the end of yesterday's year, that even though the very fact that the bittul is coming from me, that's a more powerful bittul. The bittul quality is greater. Because when the person comes to the recognition when it's Rosh Hashanah, because of the great awesomeness and the revelation of the king, that I need to be bottled for the king, so he's coming there with his ego, and he's coming there with his metzias, and he's saying, I recognize the greatness of the king. But when a person has Kabbalah's oil, just like a simple servant, this is just something that I'm a servant, and therefore, since I'm a servant, Hashem is my Adon, Hashem is my master, and I need to be mevatel myself to him. So therefore, the quality of the bittul and the devotion in Elul is much more powerful than the devotion that's to be found in Rosh Hashanah. So now we're going to go back to what we said before, that some tzaddik said in the Maimer, that we need to draw down the level of makif on Rosh Hashanah. Why do we need to draw down the level of makif during Rosh Hashanah? That's to be able to correct and to fix up all the blemishes and defects that we caused both in our neshama and in the spheres above. So we need to correct that through bittul. Bittul is the one that taps into the level of makif and draws the makif down. So the Tzemach Tzedek in his Maimer said it's primarily the bittul of Elul. How come? So he says in Isaiah, line 8, page Yud Gimel, according to this, we can explain what it says in the Maimer of the Tzemach Tzedek, Sham Shach Samak the Rosh Hashanah, it's primarily through the awe and the trembling that comes about through the blowing of the shofar and El. He says, the fact that through his trembling, like it says in the pasuk, v'chored al dvari, he's the end of the pasuk over there that talks about Shemayim Kisiv or it says v'chored al dvari, that he's trembling for my word. That fact that through his trembling, through his yira, he draws down the level of the transcendent level that's hinted in the words Eza Bayis Ashektivnuli, who beikir keshacharodi ba'oifen the bittul v'shiflus. It's primarily when the trembling the trembling itself is in a manner of bittul and feeling low, like the pasuk says. To this one I look, to someone that's poor and low of spirit. Like it's explained over there in the Maimer that Tzemach Tzedek, the more the person lowers himself, the transcendent level, the encompassing level that comes down is a much higher level. So the more I have bittul, the more I put myself lower and lower, the higher I can draw down. Therefore, based on what we said before, that in Elul, the bittul is really just, I am completely bottled to the master. It's not about the revelations. It's not about my recognition of Hashem's greatness. So Elul, the bittul is much more powerful. Line 16, now it's understood why the Tzemach Tzedek says that the primary drawing down of the transcendent level, the makif, is through the awe and the trembling of El. Why the awe and the trembling of Rosh Hashanah is because he senses the revelation of above. And a bittul that comes about because of feeling and being aware and sensing the revelation, that's not in the way of shiflus, lowness. It's not only in the chei ruach. It's not low of spirit. He's in awe. Wow, this is an amazing revelation of Hashem. It's not about him feeling low. He is overawed by Hashem's revelation, but it's not that he feels poor and low of spirit. He recognizes Hashem. The true idea of being poor and low of spirit, bittul boifin shiflus, a bittul that is not from being overawed by Hashem, but a bittul by feeling how low he is, that Hashem is his master and he's just his servant. By Yirah the El, it's through the fear and the trembling of El. And that is all continuation of the great advantage of the Yirah of El, that really the Yirah of El is what's responsible for bringing down the Makif in Rosh Hashanah, Asaris and Metshuva, to be able to repair the blemishes then. Now the Rebbe continues in this vein about the great advantage of the Yirah and Bittul and Elul, even more than Rosh Hashanah. We could add another explanation in this advantage of the awe of El over the awe and Bittul of Rosh Hashanah. The Kivan Shayira va Bittul the El by the Avidasim Shal Yisrael Ani לדודי. Where does it come from that a Yid has this awe and he has this Bittul? This comes about through the avoid of Yidden. Like we say, Ani לדודי. El is about I am going to my beloved. Now, Yidden have an awesome power. Shashorish the Yisrael hu ba'atzmus. The root of the Yidden is in Hashem's very essence. Lachein hamshacha shayde yiru bittul zeh hamshachas ha'atzmus. What the type of resulting hamshacha, the quid pro quo, the result of my avodah is something that I'm drawing down Hashem's essence. Because since a Yid is rooted in Hashem's essence, and this avodah is coming not because of Hashem's revelations, but it's coming as a result of the Yid who's rooting in Hashem's essence, who's rooted in Hashem's essence. So therefore, it's the Yirah that draws down the essence of Hashem, which is more so than we could say about Rosh Hashanah on its own, just because of Rosh Hashanah. We could say we could say this is the inner explanation why from the lower level of Yirah of Elul we come afterwards in Rosh Hashanah to a higher level of Yirah. We said before, why is it not enough that I'm going to bring down the Makif through the Yirah Ilah of Rosh Hashanah? Because you can't jump. Before you come to Yirah Ilah, you need to have Yirah Tata. So from that perspective, you're working your way up to the Yirah Ilah. First, you need to start with the Yirah Tata, and then you're going up higher. You're going to the level of Yirah Ilah. From the perspective of what we're talking about over here, it's actually just the opposite. Since Yirah Tata touches Atzmus, because it's coming from us, Atzmus is the highest level. And everything else follows from that. So really, that's why the Yirah of Elul needs to precede the Yirah of Rosh Hashanah, because you cannot have the revelations of Rosh Hashanah before you have the touching of Hashem's essence in El. Let's see it inside in line 29. Through the awe of Elul, we're drawing down Hashem's very essence. And then, once you tap into Hashem's essence, then you can have the revelations, and through this afterwards comes out the revelations of Rosh Hashanah. So that's why Elul and the Yirah of Elul must precede the Yirah of Rosh Hashanah. Any questions before we go on? Okay, now that we explained why and how the Yirah of Elul precedes the Yirah of Rosh Hashanah, now we'll be able to go and explain the idea of the Ani לדודי. Actually, in the next paragraph he's going to do it. I'm skipping ahead. Okay, now he's going to talk about the tshuva. We spoke about that the Torah explains that the Elul, we blow shofar so that it should awaken us, make us fear, come to the level of tshuva, etc. Top of page Yud Daled Oisches. V'hine al derech zo gam bin tshuva de Elul. In a similar vein, the tshuva of the month of Elul is much more powerful than the tshuva of Rosh Hashanah, just like the Yira Tata of El is much more powerful than the Yira Law of Rosh Hashanah. So he says, the fact that in El we blow shofar, like we brought before from the Tur, that's to warn the Jewish people they should do tshuva. Sheyesh b'zeh Yisrael al tshuva the Rosh Hashanah, that has an advantage over the tshuva of Rosh Hashanah. Dagam shat tshuva the El hiyal anyonim built to the tzuyim, though the tshuva of El is for untoward things. So kemuvim mashakasa b'kis ve'arizal. Like it's understood from what's written in the writings of the Arizal. The Elul HaRosh Tevis Inna Liyadei V'Samti Lach. One of the many Rosh Tevis we bring down for El is, it occurred to his hand, it happened to his hand, I will place for you cities of refuge. It's talking about someone that by mistake killed someone else. So what does that mean? The Arim Miklatu Tikkun Al Inyanim Bilti Ritzuyin. The idea of the cities of refuge indicate the general idea of fixing up negative things. So therefore, Elul, which has a Rosh Tevis of Inel Yadav V'Samtilach, Elul is about dealing with Averis. Elul is about dealing in the lowest levels. Rosh Hashanah, we're going to talk about, that's a higher level of tshuva. That's where we've already done and removed ourselves from the Averis already. We've already done tshuva for the Averis. It's a level of tshuva law, etc., etc. So, because Arim Miklat is hinted in that word, I know this. Now, the Rebbe goes like in some very interesting divisions within the stages of El itself till we hit Rosh Hashanah. So he says in the brackets in line 9, we could say, the fact that the tshuva of El is hinted in that it occurred to his hand, and I will place for you. We know that Arim Miklat is meant to atone for someone that killed someone unintentionally. Meaning that Arim Miklat, in a more broader sense, it's out to fix up unintentional things. How come? But we have to get rid of, what about the chas v'shalom, the intentional things that a person did? How is that going to be taken care of? So the Rebbe says an interesting division in El itself. The beginning of El, Resh Chodesh El, we didn't wait. We already did Shuvah. And because we didn't wait, we already did Shuvah. So our intentional sins became like unintentional sins. That's the lowest level of Shuvah that the Chazal explained. If a person does Shuvah out of fear, so then his intentional sins becomes like unintentional sins. And then Elul itself, when we get past Rosh Chodesh, so it's in a liyadav v'samtilach for someone that committed something unintentionally. V'tshuva the Elul ilasaken hashgogis, and the tshuva, the month of El, is to repair those shgogis that I transformed. I made the intentional sins to unintentional sins. Now I got to repair the unintentional sins and make it gone totally. That is all El. What follows Elul? There's still tshuva after Elul. So he says in line 14, V'tshuva de Rosh Hashanah sheba la'achri sheniskenu kvar en yonam abiltu l'tzuyim gam hashgogis is the tshuva of Rosh Hashanah that came after we repaired all matters that were untoward and unwanted. Also, the unintentional sins. Aidei tshuva de Elul, because we did it through the tshuva El, so he beikir tshuva law. When it comes to Rosh Hashanah, it's primarily the higher level of tshuva, which is more about bonding with Hashem and making our relationship with Hashem a strong relationship, etc. So it's not about repairing the bad. So looking at that, so again, one might think, just like one thought before, that Yirei Law is higher than Yirei Tata. Came the Rebbe and turned it around and said Yirei Tata has in it so many qualities. He enumerated 3 qualities, if I remember correctly, is the number, that Yirei Tata is better than Yirei Law. The same thing, the Tshuva of El, which might seem like it's dealing with negative things, whereas the Tshuva of Rosh Hashanah is dealing with connection with Hashem. So perhaps the tshuva of Rosh Hashanah is higher. So he says, not necessarily. Line 17, Mikol Mokim Yesh Yisron Bat Tshuva de El Al Tshuva de Rosh Hashanah. There's an advantage in the Tshuva of Elul over the Tshuva of Rosh Hashanah. Ki Tshuva de Rosh Hashanah hu remes ba mitzvah de Tkiyas Shofar. The Tshuva of Rosh Hashanah is hinted in the mitzvah component of Tkiyas Shofar. A mitzvah is still something that we said before has to do with a pnimius. Tshuva of Rosh Hashanah, the Rambam says, and we're going to quote it soon, is hinted in the mitzvah. So it still has a connection with the mitzvah. Let's see it inside line 20. Which of course, like the Rambam wrote, though blowing shofar in Rosh Hashanah is a decree of the pasuk, it doesn't say in the pasuk why you have to blow shofar in Rosh Hashanah. It says it comes the 7th month, the first day of the month, you need to blow shofar. That's it. Not like Pesach, where it says you got to eat matzah and so on to come Pesach to remember the things. Sukkahs, you sit in a sukkah because of the Anania Kovid, the Sukkah Shaftis Mesrol. Shofar, it's Xeris HaKosov. Even though, so the Rambam says, even though it's Xeris HaKosov, Remez Yeshboy, it's still, because Shofar has a hint. Kaloimer means to say, Uri Shein Mishnascham V'chizr B'Tshuva, awaken those sleeping from your sleep and return in Tshuva. Though the idea of tshuva that's hinted in shofar is higher than the mitzvah of tkiyas shofar, the Rebbe speaks about this in many places, and here he explains it because a remez is always higher than the simple meaning. When you read the simple meaning of the text, you read a pasuk in Chumash, and you read the simple pshat, that's fine and good. But then when you find a deeper idea that's only hinted, that's called deeper, that's higher. The same thing, there's the mitzvah of Tkiyas Shofar, and then there's the tshuva, that's a remez, that's hinted. Ukiyadua being not remez like it's known concerning a hint. Of something that is being hinted is higher than the concept that is used to hint for it. To such a degree is the hint higher that it cannot become enclosed in the thing. When you read the actual words, for example, you don't see it, you don't hear it. But it's something, it's only a hint. So even though the tshuva aspect of Tkiyas Shofar is beyond the mitzvah of a shofar, top of page, the fact that the idea of tshuva is at least hinted in Tkiyas Shofar, it's because there is some similarity between the shofar and the tshuva, and the mitzvah and the tshuva. The kivin Tkiyas Shofar b'Rosh Hashanah mitzvah, since the blowing of shofar in Rosh Hashanah is a mitzvah, lachein gam tshuva nirmezes ba yesh la shayches la'avodah Torah mitzvahs. Therefore, the tshuva that's hinted in it has to do also with the avodah that's connected with Torah mitzvahs. The ikar amal the tshuva, but the true quality and advantage of tshuva is sheyeh magia bebal harotzen l'mayla marotzen the mitzvahs. That tshuva we know reaches in the source of the will, the master of the will, the one who came up with the will, that's higher than the will of mitzvahs. Hiat tshuva de Elul is the tshuva of Elul. The fact that tshuva reaches higher than the will of mitzvahs is because Yidden preceded Torah. Therefore, even though in Torah it says that someone that did so and so should be punished so and so, but a Yid whose root is higher than Torah can do tshuva and turn that around. Because the great quality of tshuva is a result of the Yidden's higher source than Torah. So where is the highest source of a Yid revealed? We said before in El, the fact that they're coming on their own, and that's because of the Yidden source in Hashem's essence. Therefore, the special quality of tshuva is primarily when the tshuva comes from the person himself. Tshuva de Elul, the tshuva of Elul, Nila doidi, I'm to my beloved, and that is even higher than the tshuva, a law that's associated with the blowing of the shofar, because that's still associated with a mitzvah, whereas the tshuva that a yid comes from Elul is from his connection with Hashem's very essence that's higher than Torah, and therefore he's able to repair his wrongdoings. And based on all of this, we're going to be able to, like I started saying before, answer the initial question of the Maimer. The initial question of the Maimer was, Ani Ladoidi v'Doidi li Rosh Tevis Elul, and then we say, Ani Ladoidi is in the time of Elul, it's I am to my beloved, and Doidi li, my beloved is to me, is Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. How does that fit? Ani Ladoidi v'Doidi li is Rosh Tevis Elul. So he's going to explain that really, since the Yira of Elul is the source of the Yira of Tishrei, because it's higher, it comes from Hashem's essence. The Tshuva of Elul is higher than the Tshuva of Tishrei, like we just now explained, with really a great Chiddush. So therefore, already in the Anila Doidi of Elul, we have contained within it and concealed in it the Doidi Li, the greater Tshuva and the greater Yira, etc. It's going to come out in Rosh Hashanah. Let's look at Istes, line 12. This is why Anila Doidi Li is Rosh Tevis Elul, even though Doidi Li is going on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The reason why Doidi Li is included in the Rosh Tevis of Elul is the fact that through the avodah of I am to my beloved and Elul comes the drawing down of a Doidi Li in Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, who ki avoida dani ledoidi magia ba'atzmus shemisham nimshachim kol hagiluyim, because the avoida vani ledoidi reaches in Hashem's essence, that from them comes down all the revelations, and Rosh Hashanah is a time of revelations. Kan nizker le'el soif Siv Zayin, like it's explained earlier at the end of Siv Zayin. V'nimtza sheba'ani ledoidi de'el klula gam hamshachav de'v'doidi li, that ani ledoidi ve'el is also already included the later on hamshacha of a Doidi Li. In the beginning, well, we just now said that you need to have the Yira Tata as a stepping stone for the Yira law. If it's only a stepping stone, so Anila Doidi does not include Doidi Li. But if you tell me Anila Doidi is the level of Atzmus, and because the level of Atzmus, that's how you can have the Giluyim of Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, so that means in Atzmus, in the essence, in the highest most level of Anila Doidi, of Yira Tata, of Tshuva Tata, that already contains in it the higher level of Yira Ilah and Tshuva Ilah. And the Rebbe connects it also with the number of tkiyas that we blow an El. Shloimar, we could say, Giselle, Mashat Tkiyas, the Chodesh Alapim in Kabbat. Hem Tashrat, Tashat, Tarat, they are only 10 tkiyas. According to Chabad custom, Kol HaKoils are taken B'Rosh Hashanah, and this is, includes in it. And this is the idea of the, I'm sorry, I skipped. There's kolakos taken by Rosh Hashanah, all the different types of sounds that are included in Rosh Hashanah. Kibet kiyas, shoif. In other words, you're not just happy with, like other customs, that they just blow one tkiya. We, or tkiya shvarim through a tkiya, but we do the whole gamut of 10. Because we need to show that in these 10, you have everything that's going to come out later. Because already in the Tkiyas of Elul, there's all the ideas of the Tkiyas of Rosh Hashanah. That's why you have all the different types of blowing. On the other hand, so why do you only blow 10? You should blow all the 100 like on Rosh Hashanah. Perhaps we could say, that's because the blowing of the shofar of Elul, since they are the root of all the things that come down on Rosh Hashanah, it's higher than the divisions of Rosh Hashanah, so therefore we have a representative of every type of combination, but we only have one of them, without going into 100 koilos, because we're having it all in its core state, the way it's in the source, because that's the whole idea of Elul, is to have the things in the source, and then a Rosh Hashanah comes down in the level of Gilui. The Rebbe concludes with a bracha, is Yud, v'yiratzon, shaydim eseinu, what should be the will of Hashem, through our actions and service. B'fratai the avoid of El, especially through our avoid of El. Yikarvo v'yizarzo, is the Yisar Geula will make closer and quicker the Geula, k'marumas v'zeh, she'el Rosh Tevis la'avaya v'yoyimru leimer ashira, that El is Rosh Tevis, backwards Rosh Tevis, to Hashem, and they said, sowing, ashira we will sing, we know it's talking about Oz Yashir, that it's a hint on Mashiach's times, Ki Oz Yetzu Kol Nitzitzim Agolus, then all the sparks will leave exile. The Kivim Sheba El Mekabel HaMelech is Kol Masever upon him Yafa, since in El the king receives everyone with a beautiful face, and Mar upon him Seiches Kulam, and he shows a happy and smiling face to everybody. Surely the king fulfills the request of every single Yid, that he should have be inscribed and sealed for good, for a sweet and good and sweet year, and visible and revealed good, both in spiritual matters and the study of Torah and fulfillment of mitzvahs, both in matters of the physical, in children and life and the comfortable living. How much more so concerning the main request, the true and complete redemption through Mashiach, will come and redeem us and lead us standing upright to our land speedily in our day.